Up to people all over the planet. Oh, I don't hear the music. Oh,
What'd you do?
I went straight. Let me go back. Can I go back?
Yeah, well.
End stream.
Yeah.
No, you're not going to end the stream. No.
Go back. Play the intro.
Yeah.
Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
All right, Rob Browne here with you live on this Saturday morning, broadcasting live from Oakley's Lounge and Tavern up here in Nashville, getting ready for the Auburn-Vanderbilt game today. Got a bunch of people going to be joining us here. Dave Tompkins checking in, I think, from Sarasota this morning as he's down there visiting his family. He'll be checking in. Of interest for him today is the Alabama-LSU game. A lot of games to cover. We are also got Tennessee and UConn, Auburn and Vanderbilt, Texas A&M and Ole Miss. Look, bottom line is it's a college football Saturday. A lot to cover. Most of you probably went to a high school football game last night or Thursday night. It's a great time of year. You got football. We just wrapped up the World Series with the Texas Rangers winning. So we will cover all the bases. Kevin Scarbinsky joins us at about 34 after here. Frank Duffy around 8:30 a.m. Central as he's driving from north of Atlanta over to Tuscaloosa with a bunch of his LSU guys getting ready for that big matchup. That's the 3:30 Eastern kickoff in Tuscaloosa, Alabama and LSU. And Alabama right now undefeated in the SEC. Oakley McFerrin's joining me right now, soon to be into broadcasting. He's already kind of getting his feet wet. Plays football at NBA. Y'all had the night off last night. The Big Red Machine and high school football playoffs are about to get started. So, man, it just happens at the snap of a finger. In second hour, Brendan Martin will be checking in. He's going to try to check in on the way from Gainesville, actually Ocala, over to Gainesville for Florida today. So, I mean, there's, and I'm looking here at my schedule here, all the SEC games today. And I'm thinking here, bottom line, Oakley, there's all this, confusion or questions that are brought up with people that, guys y'all's age, you don't watch the football games and all. You go to a game, you stay for the full time, don't you?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So, I mean, where's this myth that people don't go to the games if they don't have Wi-Fi, if they don't have, entertainment, they can't watch the game? Where's that coming from? ESPN? I mean, they making that stuff up?
I mean, yeah, ESPN's always looking to write a story. I think for the most part, I mean, all of us stay the whole game. That's maybe the smaller 10% that might leave, but I think that's all propaganda.
Yeah, I do too. Dave Tompkins is going to join us right now. Dave, we're up here in Nashville at Oakley McFerrin's home, and he is soon to be at Auburn, freshman next year.
Oh, fantastic.
We're working on that and working his tail off to get there. And talking about all the games that are going on today. It's Savant Saturday, we like to call it. But he is a Steelers fanatic, Carolina Panthers. He's grown up obviously an Auburn fan. Dad, family, all from Tuscaloosa, so they're all.
Oh wow, lots of ties here. My family immigrated from Pittsburgh to Birmingham, and Birmingham, as you know, is called the Pittsburgh of the South. So I'll be in Nashville next week. I'm in Sarasota, Florida today, but we'll be in Nashville next week. So I hope to see you from there.
Yeah, the bottom line, Dave, no matter where you go, you got the connection with the college, the college fans, the pro fans, it all connects together. And I think really you as an Alabama fan, you grew up probably pulling for any team that had a player from Alabama in the NFL.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And as it goes along, it gets harder to where basically all 32 teams have players from Alabama and
about 5 or 6 of them.
You're pulling for everybody.
And nowadays, unlike when I was growing up, nowadays we have quarterbacks from Alabama we can pull for. We can pull for Tua and Jalen and maybe one day for Mac.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing. Your last 4 quarterbacks, Jalen Hurts, Tua, Mac Jones, Bryce Young now, 4 in a row.
Yeah.
And, it's hard to believe that, Mac Jones up there with the Patriots, of course, Auburn actually had Cam Newton, and I guess he's still in the league or whatever, but, and then Jarrett Stidham with the Patriots, whatever. But, yeah, it's hard to have NFL quarterbacks. And, you look at I'll tell you a little bit of idiot savant trivia. There was a period when the UW, University of Washington, had 18 of their 19 starting quarterbacks played in the NFL. Went on. I don't think we'll ever see that happen.
We'll never see that again. I guess Warren Moon would have been the highlight. I think he was. Warren Moon used to come to the Kentucky Derby every year, and I got to know him there, and he's a tremendously nice man.
Yeah. Well, and again, Oakley, his background. Tell him about your background at Churchill Downs, what your position was there, because Oakley's wanting to get into sports broadcasting and sports media and journalism. And Dave was a West Point graduate and then grew up in Mountain Brook, lifelong Alabama. There goes Stedman Shealy.
The Brombergs. Yes. So I spent a few, I had my 15 minutes of career fame at Churchill Downs up I-65 in Louisville, and was there for a handful of derbies. I ran marketing for the corporation, and as part of that, my team put on the derby every year. And so that was nothing like the first Saturday in May. We had our inside the company journalist John Asher was one of probably the best horse racing sports writer of all time, and there's a statue of him there, and he really introduced me to journalism and my love for it. So lots of ties. And as you know, it's only 2.5 hours from Nashville up to Churchill Downs, and next year is going to be the 150th running of the Kentucky Derby.
Hey, and Oakley, this is something cool that Dave talked about. And Frank Duffy's going to be on with us in about 25 minutes. He's got one of his young horses is going to run in December at Oaklawn over in Hot Springs.
Oh,
so
wow.
We're going to have a group field trip from the Cherry Farm, our hunting club.
Oh, my goodness.
Everybody have a designated couple of drivers. Of course, it may be better to rent like a small bus and go over there and cheer for him. But what do they run? I know in the hunting dog world, you've got the Derby, which is the dogs 2 years and under. But what is the age? Where do they top out when you run the young horses at Oaklawn and then climbing up that ladder toward the Kentucky Derby?
Yeah, the key year for horses is 3 years, 3-year-olds. So the Kentucky Derby, the Preakness, all the big races are for 3-year-olds. And then after that, the owner has a choice whether to put the horse out to stud or continue to race it. And there's plenty of races for 4 and 5 and 6-year-olds, and some of them very prominent races. But usually the winners of the Triple Crown races, the Derby, the Preakness, and the Belmont, and then what's called the Grade 1 stakes races, usually those horses go out to stud because they're once they win that race, their market value is at its peak. And might as well go ahead and let them, put them out in the pasture and let them have some fun with some with some fillies and produce some babies. Oh, I've had computer problems this morning. I can't. I'm not hearing you.
I'm sorry, I had you on mute. Sorry about that. I had myself on mute.
Oh well, we'll see. That's what happens on Savant Saturdays. We're not.
Yes, it does.
We're not technically proficient. We just have a bunch of useless information in our brains.
That's right. Well, look, what Keeneland starts middle of October up in Lexington, so that just right there with football season. a lot of people tell me the trifecta, trip up to Kentucky in the fall, you take the Bourbon Trail, go to Keeneland, and go to Kentucky football game. That sounds pretty damn fun.
Well, next weekend is going to be, fantastic up in Lexington. Actually, they're racing at Churchill Downs next weekend. They're in Keeneland in October, and in Churchill Downs in November. So go up to Churchill Downs in Louisville. Watch the horse racing on Saturday, and then if the Alabama Kentucky game is Saturday night, that you got that right there in Commonwealth Stadium.
Now, the last time Alabama lost to Kentucky was 1997. And I remember they had those air raid sirens going on up there at Kroger Field or Commonwealth Stadium at the time. Prior to that, I think the last time Kentucky had beaten Alabama was 1927.
Wow.
That's been a while.
Yeah. So and Coach Bryant coached at Kentucky for a couple of years, and
8 years.
He never could become top dog over Adolph Rupp, so he left. But Kentucky does have a proud football tradition. I kind of like them today. If we're going to start, talking games, I think they're playing at Mississippi State and Starkville. I kind of like the Wildcats today.
Yeah, I like the Wildcats too. I actually, coming into the season, I thought them versus Alabama was one of my upset picks, but it's a noon game they just announced. I don't think they have a shot.
Yeah, I'm actually more worried about that game than I am about tonight's game, if you believe that. I think 3-point spread tonight's a fair spread, but that next week game is the one that really has me concerned.
Yeah. And I think Kentucky, every time they try to get over the wall, they get knocked off. And it's just Mark Stoops can stay as long as he wants to at Kentucky. Let me say this real quick. Wesley Duncan just sent this to me from down in Fort Lauderdale. Auburn fans and Vanderbilt fans, but Auburn fans love this band. Getting lucky this weekend. Special performance by the White Animals at the Exit Inn in Nashville Saturday night, just off of Vandy's campus. And many a night and many a 5-6 o'clock Sunday morning at the War Eagle Supper Club or whatever, the White Animals.
I remember the White Animals
yeah.
from back in the day. Telluride used to play at Louis in Birmingham, and that's. I love how those. I'm surprised these bands are still the members are still alive. I mean,
I like that, Dave. It's not I'm surprised they're still around. It's I'm surprised they're still alive.
Yeah.
And I think, if I'm not mistaken, the White Animals, one or two of them were in pre-med program at Vanderbilt. I mean, the urban myth gets bigger and bigger with time.
Right.
Yeah, they're pretty damn talented. All right. And I'm sitting here going on road trips. Sometimes you don't realize what you forgot or what you don't have. I want to start looking on here. Kevin Scarbinsky is going to be joining us along with Frank Duffy in just about 15 minutes. But looking at the schedule, Texas A&M and Ole Miss. I'll start with you, Dave. That one's in Oxford. Is this, Jackie Sherrill said on this show a couple of weeks ago, he said, listen, having coached at Texas A&M, he said, when the price of oil is at $85 or $90 a barrel, they can do whatever they want at A&M, money wise.
Right.
And the rest of the country is suffering with $3.50 a gallon, $4 gas. And where he was going with this was, you think Jimbo survives?
Well, that's just it. Nationally, this is not a very important game, but inside the Southeastern Conference, where it all really matters, this is a huge game. I mean, this can be sort of the, not beginning, but sort of acceleration of Lane Kiffin's career, and could be the end of Jimbo Fisher, I think. I mean, this is a really, really, really important game, in my opinion.
Sir, I agree. I'm almost more interested in this game than not really than Alabama LSU. Like, I think this game, people aren't giving this enough attention because for Lane, like, if he can't start winning these type of games, then
exactly
what is he going to be? And then Jimbo, if he loses this game, he's going to lose to LSU later on in the season. I think I don't know how long his tenure at A&M is going to last.
I mean, to me, this is the referendum game. I mean, whoever loses this game, it's kind of a referendum on their career and their tenure at Ole Miss and Texas A&M. So I'm very interested in this game. This is a fantastic Savant Saturday we have ahead of us.
Yeah, and the other thing about Texas A&M, they're proof that if money can solve it, it's really not a problem. Because other than as who was it? Franz Beard on GatorbaitMedia.com always says on the show, only God and the Longhorns have more money than Texas A&M. A&M's endowment is a shade under $19 billion.
Wow.
Texas is a little over $42 billion. And something that really is interesting, Oakley, I don't know if you know this. I think, Dave, you might. But the state of Texas, the legislature, appropriates 2/3 of the oil and gas money that the state earns, royalties, to the University of Texas. 1/3 goes to Texas A&M.
Wow.
Sure, those other schools really feel loved and appreciated.
Yeah. What about Texas Tech and
yeah,
University of Houston? And yeah, there's plenty of other schools in Texas. No, I mean, I'm so happy Texas and Oklahoma are coming into the SEC. I think it's really going to be great for the conference. All Texas needs and I think they have it now, is a good coach, because their recruiting advantage is, stratospheric in my opinion. Well,
and that's Kevin Scarbinsky. He's going to be just saying he'll be on with us in a minute. We're going to get into a lot of coverage today, but I think $75 million is what A&M will pay Jimbo to go away and not coach if they get rid of him this year without cause.
Wow.
Couple that with the $25 million that they paid to make Kevin Sumlin disappear. It's $100 million. And
my goodness.
yeah, Ken Capps, who's a regular on Fridays with us with the Football Writers Association of America. Congratulations to Ken. Last week he was recognized as the distinguished graduate of the College of Journalism and Broadcasting at the University of Texas. That was a hell of an honor. He was on the show yesterday, pointed out, do you know how many kids could go to college on scholarships?
I know.
$100 million.
Yeah.
I mean, we've kind of lost our minds. All right, let me get into this. I normally have comments, and I'm not in my regular studio back at the Cherry
That's right.
Farm.
We're not technology geniuses. We're just savants.
I'll just read these, a lot of them by hand. There's some comments coming in from different people, whatever. But here's Maury right there. 2 old friends, Rob and Dave, and 1 new friend, Oakley. My best to Chef and Reb.
Chief and Reb, yep, down in Florida. And I actually have it's a family weekend here in Sarasota, and my cousin Andy Estes lives in Memphis. He lives on the bluff overlooking the river in downtown Memphis.
Not a bad place to be. And boy, you realize in the winter how cold it gets. You see those big, huge chunks of ice. Not really icebergs, but pretty damn close to it floating down the river. Oh my God. Let's get into some more of these games on the SEC schedule. UConn, Tennessee, that ought to be a CBS game. Clubbing baby seals. That ought to be. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that.
No, we don't. I think the Vols will win.
Yeah, think the Vols will win.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Easy day for the Big Orange. As this a crowd of 105,000, 11th straight sellout, will be there in Knoxville today. And that Pride of the Southland band comes out and forms that giant T. And then the Volunteers will run onto the field. And as John Ward would say,
John Ward, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Tennessee. God, I love that. All right.
John Ward was the best of all time, in my opinion. He was my all-time favorite.
Well, you think about, Oakley, you ever listen to the games? You're 17. You listen to the games on the radio or you just watch them? I like to listen on the radio because you get more color commentary. But what do you like?
So, I always go back and watch. Obviously I watch like the broadcast and then highlights, whatever. But then the radio, I always go back and watch like the radio commentating of like the big plays. And
yeah, I like to listen to there's more excitement.
The local ones.
Yeah. The local people, they seem to know more about it. Arkansas got rid of Dan Enos, his offensive coordinator. It worked before when Pittman was at Arkansas with Brett Bielema, but it didn't work this time. KJ Jefferson looked like he was being audited for his last 20 years of tax returns. He was not having fun this year. Kenny Guyton, who worked with Tom Herman before, has been promoted to be offensive coordinator at Arkansas. I look for Arkansas to try to do everything they can that they weren't doing before because it wasn't working. They
Just
played
open it up
in the swamp.
I totally agree. I mean, Arkansas right at this point has nothing to lose. They might as well. They still have a lot of athletes, and might as well just kind of open up the playbook and just kind of see what happens and see what works. And I think it's an open palette, if you will, for the rest of the season, and they should just try everything, throw everything at the wall, and see what works, and then get ready for next season.
Well, Oakley, you think about it. You're young enough. You're on that team at Arkansas. The way things have gone this year, it has not been fun. You're on a 6-game losing streak. We've got J. Rodney Scroggins Jr. III is buck naked up on a billboard in Levesque, Arkansas.
He's always buck naked. When is he not?
Yeah, he will not come down until Arkansas wins a football game. He's been up there a while. It's getting cold. He's 42. I don't know if he's going to make it, but
I know. It gets kind of lonely up on that billboard too,
Yeah, that poor guy. I feel for him. Oakley, you're Arkansas. You're going down to the swamp. Florida got, beat 43-20 by Georgia last week. What at this point, you play football. He starts at wide receiver for NBA, Montgomery Bell Academy up here in Nashville. Big Red Machine. Y'all season hadn't gone the way you wanted it to, but every time you go out there, your goal is to win, isn't it?
Yes, sir. Okay.
You put yourself and be an Arkansas player. How were you approaching this game in the swamp today? At what noon? What time is it? At 12 o'clock Eastern.
12. Yep.
Yes, sir. Yeah, I mean, I think obviously from where their expectations were coming into the season, this is not where they thought they'd be. With that being said, they've played hard. They've played better teams than Florida and only lost by 3 in Baton Rouge by 3 and against Alabama by 3, I believe.
7, yeah.
7. Okay. Yeah. Well, they've been right there. They've given these teams.
No, you're right. It was 24-21, wasn't it?
It was. Yeah, you're right. It was 3. Yeah.
They've given these top teams all they've wanted. I think they can do as long as they have KJ Jefferson. I think they have a chance. Yeah, he's that special.
We're gonna say Arkansas covers.
I'm gonna give a little props to Florida. Kimberly and I were driving down from Beaufort. We stayed in Gainesville Wednesday night. That is a fun town. That is we stayed right across the street from the swamp, and loved it. I mean, this had a great time. So I've never been a Florida football fan. I love your who is your Hall of Famer that calls in from Gainesville. I love him. But
Buddy Martin, Franz Beard, Ben Troop, Allie Peak Wilbur, and Brendan Martin, Buddy's son. Hopefully, he's going to be on with us in the second hour as they're driving from Ocala over to Gainesville.
Oh, cool, cool.
So, it should be fun. But you're right. Florida, the swamp. That right now they're sitting there at number 3 in the country in recruiting. So they're building.
Yes.
The mentality of fans today, it's nuts. It's like when I build a portfolio for clients, I always talk about all the risk, everything that can go wrong, then I walk it back from there. I got that from rest in peace, Bobby Knight, one of my favorite coaches of all time.
We need to talk about him some in this segment.
We are.
Sure.
Absolutely. Yeah. My brother-in-law played football at Virginia Tech, was at a convention one time, a banking convention. Bobby Knight was the keynote speaker. And he said, we won a lot of games in Indiana, but here's how we do it. We look at every way we can lose and screw it up, and we walk it back from there to build a winning game plan. Maybe he was a little bit tough and harsh for people, but that's the only way I respond is that type of coaching or mentoring by people. It works.
Seth Davis, you see him on CBS during March Madness. He wrote an absolutely beautiful piece on Bobby Knight a couple of days ago, the day after he passed. And being from West Point, Coach Knight, was coach there. That's where he met, Coach K. Yeah. And there's a great old legendary story. If I could indulge me for a minute to tell the story, it totally, speaks to Bobby Knight. So it was, he was there, it was the late 60s. and he could only have 12 people on his team. And so he had number 12 and number 13. So there were two guys fighting for the last slot. And he, held them after practice, the two guys, and said, look, one of you is going to be the 12th guy, and the other guy is going to, go back to the barracks and not be on the team. Mind you, neither of you, if you're the 12th man, you're never going to see action in the game. So you're just going to be a practice player. You're just going to, help the other guys and stuff, but you're never going to get on the court unless something really goes really, really good or really bad in the game. So think about that and think about being on the team. And then he rolled the ball across the court and said, I'll be upstairs in my office, and whoever the 12th person is on this team, the last guy will deliver the ball to me. So
I love that.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean,
you think about Bobby Knight's impact, his way of coaching. He just, all he ever asked for was everything you had.
Yeah.
What's wrong with that?
And more. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And what I love is and you'll see this in the Seth Davis piece. I mean, every player, there's the choking incident, the slapping incident, the whip, and all that kind of stuff. But every player to a player said, my life was I'm a better man because I played for Coach Knight. He made me a better man. And what more can you say? I mean, that's your resume right there.
Yeah. Well, I had a guy like that my freshman year at Christian Brothers as a homeroom teacher, Coach Russell Reed, the last 16 letterman in Ole Miss history, class of 47, football, basketball, baseball, track and field. You got that, Cat? That's what he used to say all the time. And he smoked Swisher Sweet cigars. And the guy he loved a crappie fish down at Sardis Lake down in Mississippi, but he was tough as nails. But once you understood that there's two ways to do things, there's the right way and there's the wrong way. And as Jiminy Cricket famously said, only a fool does things the foolish way.
Yeah, I think we need to kind of like pause and reflect on Coach Knight for a couple days, given what's going on in the world and stuff. Yeah. Because I mean, yeah, you can make a highlight reel of his blooper reel and stuff, but some of that stuff is hilariously funny, I think, in my opinion. But here was a guy that did so many great things that never took credit for those great things. I mean, he was behind the scenes. I mean, once you were an alumni of Bobby Knight, once you were part of his program and you graduated, from his program, I mean, he would do everything for you and never wanted credit for it. I mean, he did so much behind the scenes. I mean, he was a great, great, great American. Yeah.
Audrey and I driving up from Memphis last night up here to Clarksville. Now we're in Nashville. I hit something on YouTube. It was a montage of Bobby Knight's appearances on David Letterman. Oh my God.
And funny as can be.
Yeah. How about Letterman calls Bobby Knight's office and his secretary answers. He goes, hi, Dave Letterman in New York City. How you doing? She goes, fine, fine. He goes, and what is your job? She goes, I'm Coach Knight's secretary. And how long have you worked with Coach Knight? She goes, 10 years. She goes, have you enjoyed it? She goes, every minute of it. And she goes, can I speak to Coach Knight? And she goes, well, let me see if he's available. And all of a sudden he pops in and goes, Dave, how you doing? And Dave was talking about how the show the night before had been really lame and not good. He goes, we thought we'd get Bob Knight to give us a motivation, a pep talk about getting it better. I mean, it was slapstick comedy. The guy was, look, there are people out there that are anti-alpha male culture. They want to emasculate this country. You know what? Put your lip over your head and swallow. Disappear. Yeah. We don't need you. We need more of that culture, that tough culture. It's the only way this country makes it. And Bobby Knight, and look at Jay Billis, who is another basketball savant out there. He played for Coach K. I mean, don't put a microphone on a coach and try to count how many cuss words he says during a game. You don't need to do that, but they get results, and both on the court and in the classroom, but ultimately more important than anything else in life.
Yeah, no, I mean, and then the other thing about, the two other things about Coach Knight, about he never cheated. He always was maniacal about playing by the rules. Even if he didn't agree with the rules, they were the rules, and he played by them. And all of his players graduated. And probably the transfer portal NIL world is a world that would have always been unfamiliar to him. But man, I think anyone that thinks sports is a metaphor for life and sports is important, sports matters, you got to take a couple of days and just reflect on Coach Knight, in my opinion.
Well, you do. I mean, you knew about Bob Knight, even though he had kind of retired at your age.
So yeah, one of the greatest basketball coaches ever. For sure.
And I love the way his legacy lived on in Coach K, and kind of the kinder, gentler version of Coach Knight. Coach K will probably say in the eulogy that I'm hoping that his eulogizers are two people, Coach K and Isaiah Thomas, and Coach K always said he's the only person I ever called coach, and that's quite an honor.
Well, the coaches that you remember are the coaches that they're tough, but they're fair. We all remember Gunnery Sergeant Hartman with his kind words in boot camp.
There is no racial bigotry in my platoon.
Yeah. I do not look down on anyone. Here you're all equally worthless until proven wrong. But
right, snowball.
Yeah. I mean, you can't but that's the only way to do it. I mean, you can't be reading woke poetry. Tommy Tuberville talked about they're now reading woke poetry aboard aircraft carriers. I told that to my brother-in-law this morning about 5:30, Kurt Ham up in Clarksville, 26 years in the Marine Corps, 81 to 07, Somalia, Fallujah, everywhere in between. You can't beat it, just like you. I mean, y'all are the same age, basically. And I said something, about just the culture, the society, and everything. The people like Kurt, people like you who have served, they're our best. And you influence other people. But the one thing Kurt said when they were on board those aircraft carriers, he lived in Okinawa for 2 years, Hawaii for 3 years, Zimbabwe, everywhere in the world. There's nothing like the United States military culture because it's tough. They demand excellence, and the standard, if we lower it, we'll be in trouble.
I think, and I'm going to get, I hope, we're kind of in a safe audience here, but I'm going to go on a little bit of a limb, but everything is, you don't have to, beat me out. But whether you call it woke or progressive or whatever, what I love right now is that there's two voices out there in media and culture who are basically slapping that in the face, the woke progressive. One is a Jewish woman, a Jewish lesbian woman named Barry Weiss, and her reporting is so beautiful. I mean, it's basically the truth, and her platform is called the Free Press, and what she's doing is amazing. And the other, I think, is Coach Prime, and Coach Prime is talking about what's it like to be a black man and the pride of being a black man and all that. I love that. I mean, I love Barry and I love Coach Prime, and who would have thought that those would be the two voices basically kicking woke in the ASS.
Yeah. And it needs to be kicked in the ass every possible moment. Hey, Frank, great comments, by the way, Dave. Absolutely agree with you. Frank Duffy, not aboard Bengal 1. Looks like he's in a sedan or an SUV. But on the way,
he's headed to T-Town.
Hey Frank, I gotta tell you,
we left Bengal 1 in the hangar. I decided to come down in the Navigator. I got my good buddies Lester Smith, Chris Carlton, great LSU Tigers here in the car with me. Heading on over to T-Town. Like Coach Ogeron used to say, "We coming and we ain't backing down."
We coming.
As always. But hey, Dave, we're on opposite ends again, buddy. We're on opposite
I know.
ends again,
but at least this time the result won't be 62-0. and I'm afraid my Army team's going to get their asses whooped today by Air Force in Denver. But they actually practiced yesterday on Folsom Field, and so there's a lot of great photos of Jeff Monken and Coach Prime, so that's great. So maybe Coach Prime put a little karma dust on us and we can beat Air Force. But yeah, big game tonight. I'm down in Sarasota with my entire family, extended family. We come here every year to be with my dad for the Alabama LSU. Way back in the late 50s, my dad played basketball for Alabama.
Oh,
Hey,
wow.
Frank.
Okay. My grandfather actually graduated from the capstone a gazillion years ago.
Oh, so you got some Alabama blood in there.
Right.
Okay. Hey, Frank,
Yeah, somewhere back there. We tried to repress it. Yeah.
last weekend we had 8
you
guys
hear me,
from Lake
Bob?
Charles. 8 guys from Lake Charles up at the farm. We had beef tongue gravy with mock shoe. It was unbelievable.
Hey, man, that corn mock shoe is excellent. I love it.
Yeah, that's
By
what
the
it was.
way, I made my seafood gumbo for the Auburn game. It was absolutely fabulous, and it was so great. We got to take Doug Dean out to Galatoire's on that Friday. It was such an awesome trip. Dave, I did not get to go to the Army LSU game. I would have liked to have gone in. It was a special night. I know the game wasn't close, but the welcome that LSU gave to Army with the camouflaged end zones, the standing ovation, the parachute team coming in. It was a very memorable night.
My favorite moment of that game was Brian Kelly making sure his entire team went to the Army side and they stood at attention while we sang our alma mater. And
very classy move.
Yeah, every player from Army that played in that game, it'll be an experience for the rest of their lives. The score will vanish, and when their battalion commander, hopefully not in the Gaza Strip, but and they say, I played in that game.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Y'all hold that thought. We're gonna take a quick commercial break and be right back. We got Frank Duffy, mobile unit, not Bengal One, but an SUV with purple and gold magnets all over it, with a sticker that says "We coming." We got Dave Tompkins in Sarasota, Florida. Rob Browne, Oakley McFerrin up here in Nashville, where Auburn plays Vanderbilt today. Take a couple of quick commercials and be right back with more. Kevin Scarbinsky will be with us when we come back.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines.
Unbelievably, every 2 minutes in our communities, a child is either bought or sold for sex. I am R.A. Dickey, board member for the Nashville Anti-Human Trafficking Coalition. Join me and millions of others in our fight against human trafficking and for its victims by helping to educate the most vulnerable among us, our middle and high school students. Go to nhtcoalition.org, become a partner, and help keep our families safe, because none of God's children are for sale.
Okay, Rob Browne back here with you. Oakley McFerrin, Dave Tompkins, Frank Duffy. Frank riding aboard. It looks as though, Frank,
Hopefully he's not driving. He's looking over at the Talladega Speedway right now. He's on I-20 going by Talladega looking at the Speedway.
Yeah, I was just saying, I hope Frank's not driving with his head. We just lost Frank, but hopefully we'll get him back. But let me throw something. I like what this is an interesting one from Dave in Memphis. David Quadro in Memphis just texted this to me. Now you can send your comments on YouTube. People are watching on YouTube. Most of our listeners, we've got like 60,000 unique listeners now. Most of them are watching this or listening on the Sidelines website, but you can also go to youtube.com/@sidelines_live and subscribe to our channel if you can. But anyway,
Hey Rob, we're in Alabama airspace here.
That might be the problem.
I think they're jamming. They're jamming my signals. We're clearly behind enemy territory already as we're coming up on Anniston and Oxford, where they have the U.S. Army special weapons dump. You know what? When we come in here, they have special ops keeping an eye on all those Cajuns when we come to town.
Well, hey, let me throw something. Hey, Dave. Hey, Frank. Do yourself a favor when you go to Publix and go to the Alabama local and buy you. It's a section where they have all the seasonings and rubs. Miss Rubin's rubs, White Magic, Black Magic, Seafood Magic, and Creole Magic. That's Jay Evers, one of my fraternity brothers from Auburn, from Dadeville. He and Robert Landers have that company. It's been around since 1935. The old penny profit market in Montgomery. A couple of Greek immigrants opened them. You will absolutely love Miss Rubin's rubs, as will Dave, because both of y'all I know are pretty skilled in the kitchen.
That's great. Dave will hold the guy that messed up the trees at Toomer's Corner.
Yeah.
Don't forget, Rob. Don't forget, Rob. Y'all sent me some about 2 years ago. I use it sometimes on my brisket, which is excellent, in my smoker. And let me tell you, the White Magic goes great in an etouffee. So I use it with the blonde roux, and I make my crawfish etouffee. I dust it with a little bit of that White Magic. I also put in, some really good seasoning that I've got in New Orleans, which doesn't have a lot of salt in it, called Andy Ruse. So the White Magic and Andy Ruse, I mix it together in the pestle mortar, and I throw it in there. It works great.
Hey, Duff, what you making once you get to T-Town?
Well, actually, I'm going to be a guest leech this week as opposed to being the host. So it's whatever our good buddy Peyton Murphy is making at the Sprinter. We have downsized from Bengal 1 to a Mercedes Sprinter. And so whatever he's making, that's what we're going to eat. But you know what? Here's the great thing. Even though the rivalry is always very tough between LSU and Alabama, there's not a lot of love lost. We always eat well in Tuscaloosa. And, of course, Bama fans can always eat well in Baton Rouge. We might want to go at each other's throats for the 3 hours when we're in the stadium. But before and after, it's always very collegial. So I'm sure our bellies will be full. My esteemed buddy up here, Mr. Chris Carlton, walked in with a full quart of bourbon. So I'm sure that will be regaled at some point in time during the proceedings. My good buddy Lester Mitz back there has gone in and bought all the snacks that we need just for the drive over to Publix. So we're good to go, boys. It's game day, and there is nothing, as much as I love my Auburn rivalry, as much as I love playing Ole Miss and beating them, there is nothing like LSU, Alabama, especially since Nick Saban got there in 2007. Man, I'm telling you what, it is the game and the day that we circle on the calendar every year. And we had our identity crisis for 7 years after that, horrible fact that Alabama got put in that national championship game when it should have been Oklahoma State. We'd have boat raced them. And finally getting the monkey off our back in 2019, it was like lifting a 1,000-pound weight. Last year's game was the most exciting 2-point conversion I've ever witnessed in my life. I was kissing strangers, and they've even grown men. Today, we're coming, like Coach O said. We're gonna be there. We're gonna be there in Bryant Denny. We're going to be right down there from Denny Chimes. And let me tell you, when that red crimson lights up in the fourth quarter, dude, it's on like Donkey Kong. And I'm going to tell you, you better have an abacus with you today because there's going to be more points scored in this game than we will not be revisiting the 9-6 game of 2011.
No, I was at that game. I was at that game.
I was too.
Yeah, but this weekend is very special to me. It's always my family reunion, so we have people from all over the country here in Sarasota to be with my dad to watch the Tide and the Tigers. We even have our beautiful friend Katrina Hall. She's Alabama, and her husband Jim Hall is Baton Rouge. They live in Baton Rouge, but they split this weekend because she's got to be with the Tide and he stays with the Tigers. So Jim's actually going to be at Bryant-Denny at the game. So it's a big weekend.
I don't know what, hey, Dave, I don't know what their allegiance is going to be like, but I bet he cooks in the family. That much I do know.
He's the better cook. Actually, yeah, she's from Birmingham. He's from Baton Rouge, and Jim is the better cook. So there you have it.
Hey, I see Scarbo just joined us. So I want to know, from all you Alabama people, how in the hell, with our culinary delights that we do, I can understand if I smell like gumbo or etouffee or jambalaya or shrimp creole or bananas Foster. But how in the hell did y'all think we smell like corn dogs? That is the last thing we freaking smell like.
Hold on a second. First of all, good morning, everyone. Don't pin that on me. Don't pin that on me, Frank. Just like don't hit me with the word media. Why do you media people? First of all, we don't all get marching instructions. We don't have a manual or a
He's
handbook.
a Pennsylvania guy. I mean, you know.
Exactly. I was born and raised in Pennsylvania. I've probably eaten 5 corn dogs in my life. So I don't know where that came from. I don't know where it came from. It just seemed, I don't know why it's stuck, but here we are.
You know where I think it came from?
Hey, look.
Ole Miss
what
fans.
They say perception is reality.
Well,
Yeah,
guys, I think that
and Katy Perry
term came.
Yeah.
Well, hey, Dave and Kevin.
By the way, people who have never been. Hey, Rob, people who have never been to Atlanta shouldn't throw stones. That's my take on it.
Yeah. Well,
Those Ole Miss
and again,
guys.
it wasn't Auburn and Alabama people that came up with that term. It is an old term. But Kevin, let's get your
Ole Miss.
thoughts today. 47 minutes from Birmingham. You've got LSU and Alabama. We are in Nashville right now, not too far from Vanderbilt Stadium, which has been shrunk to about the size of a large bedroom for this season. But we're going to go watch Auburn.
They want a capacity crowd.
Get your thoughts on the day of college football that's ahead of us, and just kind of break down what you think are the top stories of the day. You being a U.S. Basketball Writers Hall of Fame, the only writer in Alabama history to do that, and also a little bit of idiot trivia here. 2 Gamecocks facing each other today, the first time in college history, Jacksonville State and South Carolina. So, I'm sure that's got everybody in the country on the edge of their seats.
Hey, obviously that's humorous, but Rich Rod's doing a great job at Jacksonville State. You know, their first year in Conference USA, they moved up to the FBS, and unfortunately, like James Madison, they can't play in the postseason, which is a horrible rule. I understand the reason behind it, but I wouldn't be surprised if South Carolina doesn't take them seriously. I wouldn't be surprised to see Jacksonville State win that game. They've won SEC games before. Remember, they beat Ole Miss with Jack Crow as the head coach. And so that's a proud football tradition there at Jacksonville State. It's where Bill Clark is from. Obviously, he did such a great job at UAB. So a lot of good football happening in this state. Troy, how about Troy the other night?
And Duff is driving right by Jacksonville State right now as we speak.
Yeah. Hey, Frank, don't take any U-turns. That Talladega sign is awfully inviting. You see the track there. You might want to go take a few laps. Don't do it. Don't do it. But as far as the day, what a great day. I mean, what a great way to kick off what should be a great month.
Yep.
The final month of the regular season. There's so many big games, as you said, Rob, highlighted tonight by what's going to happen in Tuscaloosa. I expect another classic out of that one. And then, not as many people seem to be talking about Georgia, Missouri
Yeah.
But really, you've got the SEC East, almost an SEC East championship game, and almost, but not quite. Don't want to hear from Ole Miss fans. An SEC West championship game going on at not at the same time, but both on the same day. And I don't know why people don't want to take Missouri seriously. You know, they've won 2 SEC East championships, if you recall. Didn't go well for them when they got to Atlanta, but they've gotten to Atlanta, and there are other SEC East programs who have not been there. And so Eli Drinkwitz has done a really nice job with that team building it. So, but the worst thing that could have happened for Missouri today was taking Georgia to the wall last year. They will have Georgia's full attention today. There will be no looking past. There will be no post-Florida hangover. Of course, they didn't have to really break a sweat against Florida after that first Florida drive. So just a lot of good football. And Auburn, this is, you know, it is amazing. Is it still true, Rob? I think it is, that Auburn and Vanderbilt all time are tied.
Yeah,
Wow.
it's
One of the most
interesting.
amazing stats in college football.
Well, interesting trivia. From 1955 to 2008, I think they only played 14 times.
Yeah.
Auburn never lost. The last time prior to that 14-13 Auburn loss in 2008 that Vanderbilt beat Auburn was 25-13 in the Gator Bowl. I know that because I'm an idiot savant. My dad and his friends at Camp Stewart, now Fort Stewart, drove down what's now Interstate 95 to Jacksonville. Auburn used the X and Y quarterbacks. It was a loss, but and another bit of trivia: do not lose to Vanderbilt if you're the Auburn coach. You will not be back the next year.
Right.
Tommy Tuberville, for whatever reason, was not back, and Gene Chizik, the fact that he presided over the worst football season at Auburn since 1950 when Wofford beat Auburn. Auburn went 0-10. Another bit of trivia: no Auburn coach has ever survived losing on the road in Oxford to Ole Miss and come back the next year. Pat Dye in 92, Tuberville in 08, 2012. It happened, unfortunately, to Gene Chizik. And then in 2022, Brian Harsin. I can't even say it. I can't eat baked potatoes like I used to. They're just not as good as they used to be. But there's just certain things you don't want to do as the coach of that. But the bowl, the game today is we've never been to Atlanta for the SEC championship game. Texas A&M and Ole Miss.
Yep.
And Oakley, your thoughts on that one, and throw it back to these guys. Who you think's going to come out on top?
Yeah, I mean, I think if A&M can shut down the run, I think they win. But they've been able to do that the whole season, with the exception of the Tennessee game. But I mean, I think in Oxford, Ole Miss is fired up. Jackson Dart, I think they're just too much.
Texas A&M has got to pressure Jackson Dart. That's the only way they're going to do it. They got to get him off of his spot. If they get him mobile, again, he'll pick up some yards, but I think that puts him in a pressure situation. But if he can sit back there and find their wide receivers, I think A&M's going to have a long day.
And what has A&M lost now? 8 straight road games? Something like
Something
that?
like that.
Not good.
Yeah.
They have
Again,
no
that
real
collection.
toughness. They're just it's I think they lose today, and I don't think Jimbo Fisher gets fired. I think they'll give him one more year, but I think next year will be his sort of show cause year.
Well, as y'all know, I said in the beginning of the year, Jimbo doesn't finish out the year. I was hoping that selfishly so that we might have an interim coach when LSU plays him at the end of the year, hopefully with Atlanta on the line. But I'm telling you, he loses this one and then loses to LSU. Guys, I'm telling you, I don't think you see him on the sideline next year.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I think if he drops those 2, he's out.
Yeah, I agree. I think they tap another oil well, pay him his $87 million, and get him the hell out of town.
Well, who will ever forget this creepy son of a biscuit? Ted Underhill from Fletch. Get your champagne ready.
I was about to say Ted Underhill or Fred Garvin, male prostitute.
Yeah. I'll never forget. Are you Kevin Scarbinsky from the Great Lake Seed Company? Yes, I am. Well, you're spending the night with me, Fred Garvin, male prostitute. That was one of the funniest skits they ever did on Saturday Night Live. By the way,
Hey, that's when we used to know who the hosts of Saturday Night Live were. Who am I the only one here that did not know when they announced the game day a guest picker today. Did not know who he was. Am I the only one?
I have not seen TV yet today.
I can't even pronounce his last name.
What sort of hillbilly did our buddies from Alabama come up with?
No. This guy has nothing to do with Alabama. He's a Vanderbilt fan. He's supposedly the hottest comedian in the country. His name's Dave, with a last name that I wouldn't begin to try to pronounce. Starts with a B. And supposedly he's very funny. I saw one skit on Twitter from last week's show. I didn't think it was all that great because I used to watch the show. I don't watch it anymore. But he has nothing to do with Alabama or LSU. Go figure.
Yeah. Well,
that's crazy.
Audrey just said it's not Dave Chappelle because he's funny.
Right.
And we've heard of him.
Yeah.
We have heard of him. Hey,
and he says things that gets him
here's the
canceled.
thing. This is Oakley McFerrin. Now, he's hopefully going to be a freshman. He will be a freshman at Auburn next fall. He's grown up his whole life. And you think about it, your battery's running low. We're not plugged in. Audrey, get that thing plugged in. Okay. Here we go. Make sure we're not losing power here. Okay, the power strip is on, isn't it? Okay. But anyway, you're right. They bring these people out that they want you to think the worst of these.
Uh-oh. Did we lose Rob?
We lost Rob. We got to.
Okay. I'm General
improvise.
Alexander
Okay.
Haig. I'm taking over.
Yeah.
You're chief of staff, Frank.
Yeah, exactly. So, Kevin, outside the SEC, what is your biggest game you're looking at today?
Obviously, I think Washington USC is very, very interesting.
Very good game.
Because Washington has struggled since the win over Oregon.
They almost lost to Stanford last week.
Yes, as against teams that are not very good. And USC against the Cal team where nobody could score when they played Auburn, that put up all kinds of points on USC, as everybody does. It's amazing how bad their defense is.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Is this a chance for Washington to get beat? It seems like it the way they've been playing. I don't know what's going on at USC, but if he doesn't make a change of defensive coordinator, how serious is he about winning a national championship?
I completely agree with that. That was his Achilles heel at Oklahoma too. They always had a great offense, but never could stop. I remember my Army team, took them to overtime in Norman. We just could run the ball, and they've really got to get defense. I like the Oklahoma State game today. I think that's a pretty interesting one outside of conference.
It is kind of sad that Bedlam is going to go away. That is a really undervalued rivalry, in my opinion. There have been some really good games, some really high shootouts, Oklahoma State over the years. Stillwater and Norman are really just such iconic Big 12 college campuses. So that's one of the casualties of the new realignments that I'm a hate to see go.
And don't be surprised, guys. Obviously, Oklahoma State's they've played better, and that they could very well win that game, knock Oklahoma out of the national championship hunt, and again that would be helpful for Oklahoma, and then throw the Big 12 race into chaos.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. And after that Hall of Fame Oscar-winning rant by Dabo to the question about how much, I'm really interested in the Notre Dame Clemson game today as well. That was 6 minutes of just pure wonderfulness by Dabo, I thought, in the press conference.
Well, Dabo's looking down the barrel at not making the Bean Bowl eligible. I don't know where they come up with their next 2 wins, honestly. The way they're playing, they're going to play hell to split those last 4 games. Good luck. And I tell you what, he doesn't make the playoffs, doesn't get that extra month. That's going to kill their recruiting. And the last remnants of any thought of Dabo being the replacement of Saban, if it hadn't already left town, it'll be gone by the time the Tigers leave with our W tonight.
Well, probably. What's happened? Maybe it was going to take something like this season for Dabo to realize that he has got to make some fundamental changes in his approach.
Yeah,
because like a lot of coaches don't like NIL. A lot of coaches don't like the transfer portal. But I mean, Nick Saban's been very outspoken, but they understand their value to building your roster, and so you don't have to love it to use it, and to be successful in using it. And he has just been so stubborn, and look, and it's understandable. You know, Dabo has. If you know, as we know his backstory. I've known him since he was a player at Alabama. You know, he has always come up from nothing. He's always found his own way. He's always worked his way out of any difficulties he's faced, and so he's very confident in his own abilities. And the proof is in the pudding. I mean, what they did over the last 12 years. I mean, that's the kind of stuff only Alabama and Nick Saban have done, and succeeded. So, but you can't rest on that. You have to adapt. That's Nick Saban's greatest ability as a head coach is ability to adapt and change with the times. And Dabo's got to do that. So maybe it would take not making a bowl game or going 6-6 and playing in a lower level bowl for him to realize, hey, I've got to make some fundamental changes here.
And you're right.
If I were the Alabama AD, I'd say, look, there's another guy who's coaching in the NFL in Houston, an Alabama guy, D'Amico Ryans. And Dabo, he's your competition because he is a great coach. He's a great Alabama, great linebacker for Alabama. And so don't think that this is you can't mail it in to be Saban's successor.
That's a great mention there, because D'Amico is he's one of the classiest individuals you'll meet. He was terrific to interview when he was a player in Tuscaloosa, and he's worked his way up through the coaching ranks. If he has success in Houston, and he's the kind of guy you just expect to have success in whatever he does. I wouldn't be surprised if down the road, again, depending on how long Nick goes, and Nick could go, Nick could go 3, 4, 5 more years if he wants to, if he's still in good health. Sorry to say that, Frank. Sorry to say that, Frank. But it's true.
And we're not talking about quota hires or anything like that. I do think that Alabama made a mistake when they didn't hire Sylvester Croom way back when. I think if Coach Bryant were alive, that would have been his recommendation. And I think you have to give D'Amico Ryan serious consideration because he is just a tremendous football coach, football mind. He's family, and he deserves consideration.
Dave, with all due respect, the big Alabama mistake on hiring a quarterback coach was not hiring Rich Rod in 2007. That's my take on it.
And the horse you rode in on, Frank.
Hey, I'd have 6 more national championships if that happened.
Oh, that's great.
So, Hey, Dave, I got to ask you because we're getting close. I don't want to pivot real quick here, but my horse, our little filly's getting ready to start working out at Oaklawn.
I heard.
Shipping her over in a couple of weeks. I got a couple of other buddies of mine that have Ron Moquette horses. They're up in Churchill. In fact, one of them's getting ready to be entered, they think, in a race in about 3 weeks for that final run at Churchill before we go into the winter meets. But want to let you know, I know Rob said he's going to come, all the guys from Lake Charles, when our filly Two Bells runs in Oaklawn. So I'm going to give you a holler. You're going to have to make the trip over.
Okay.
And come watch her run in Oaklawn.
Is she a rising 2-year-old?
No, she's a rising 3-year-old.
3-year-old. Yeah, I mean, that's what I meant. Yeah. So she's 2, about to be 3. Yeah. Oh, cool.
Yeah. And we're not racing her beforehand because the purses are so big in Arkansas right now. We had her drop in Arkansas. She was actually raised on Kentucky bluegrass. Her mama was there until the last month, and then we shipped her to Arkansas. She dropped in Arkansas. She's by a big speed horse, Lord Nelson, who was a California winner, and hopefully we get a little of her speed. Ron liked her.
So if she wins at Oaklawn, does that put her in the Oaks?
She wins the Phillies on Philly allowance.
Okay. So Kevin, is Penn State playing today?
We're all on it.
You know, I imagine they are, Dave, but I can't even tell you who they're playing. Once they lost to Ohio State in typical big game James Franklin fashion,
right?
They kind of fell off my radar, which I wanted to get you guys' thoughts on. I was so surprised. I guess I shouldn't have been, given the national love for Ohio State, when Reese Davis after the selection show on Tuesday, the first playoff rankings came out, of course, not selection show, but first ranking show. And he was trying to explain why Ohio State was number one. And he said he used the word clearly, have the two best wins on the board. And I had to throw a flag at that because, wait a minute. So you're telling me that an 8-point win against Penn State and a 3-point win at Notre Dame when Notre Dame decided to play 10-man football on a winning touchdown drive, those two wins are more impressive than Alabama has two 14-point wins against two teams that are ranked very similar to Penn State and Notre Dame, and that's obviously Ole Miss, 24-10, and then Tennessee, which is ranked a couple of spots behind Notre Dame. They beat them 34-20. So, and I know Alabama's not in contention for number one. I'm not saying that, but those two wins are at least as good, if not better, than Ohio State's two wins.
I think Florida State and Washington have better wins than Ohio State.
Better singular wins, absolutely. Absolutely.
And I think both Georgia and Michigan have, when they've wanted to play, I think they're the best two teams. It's early in the we have a number of weeks for this to play out, but in my opinion, the best two teams right now are Georgia and Michigan.
Based on the eye test, and you can't ignore the eye test. Although it is interesting, of course, the committee has shifting priorities when it comes to what criteria they use for each team. They used resume, obviously, with Ohio State based on those two wins, it appears.
Right.
But Georgia, it was more eye test. Michigan, it was more eye test because, as you said, why would you rank Michigan in particular with their schedule to date ahead of Washington, which is beating Oregon, which is probably the best singular win on the board, or Florida State for that matter as well. So, yeah, it's it's one of those things. That's what makes college football fun, right? We all know. Hey, look who's back!
Alexander Reagan is back. Alexander Haig, you can stand down now.
Let me. Can I do this real quick? Out of this. Hold on. Here. It happened. Can you hear it?
Ladies and gentlemen, we are experiencing.
That was the old. We're experiencing technical difficulties, whatever. But sorry about that.
Hey Rob,
great job by the
Rob,
way, guys.
You'd have been proud of us, Rob. We kept running with the ball, and Dave came on like Alexander Haig, saying he was taking charge. Of course, he's the only one that's got military history to be able to do that.
Hey,
He had the training from West Point.
Hey, thank you so much. Moving right along, nothing to see here. No problems here. Just
after three plays and a Notre Dame punt.
Hey, Alexander Haig, I'm in charge. I love it. Hey, let's keep rolling. I love it here. I'm in control here. It's pending the return. That was class. Look, great job. We don't know what happened, but I'm gonna tell you one thing. Let's get in. I got to ask you real quick. And Dudley and I were wanting to know. You go back to that Georgia-Missouri game. You're right. It's the Rodney Dangerfield game of the day. It's not getting the respect it deserves. Eli Drinkowitz,
I got on it.
Pretty good coach. I mean, they're 7-1. Kevin, let's start with you. What do you think is going to happen in that game because of the way Missouri has? They lost to LSU at home by 10, but they won every other game and they won a lot of close games.
Yeah, they had opportunities to win that one also if they had played better down the stretch in the fourth quarter. But this is a game I just think they've got Georgia's attention now. I think Georgia understands. You know, they've won so many games now that, you know, they're getting close to breaking Alabama's SEC record for consecutive victories. When you get Georgia's full attention, like Florida had last week, good luck to you.
Right.
Good luck to you. And I think that's going to ultimately be the case today against Missouri. And Missouri may play them tough, you know, into the second half, but that I will be a little surprised if Georgia doesn't separate at some point in the second half.
I am just super impressed with Kirby Smart as a head coach. I mean, I was so grateful for his years in Alabama. You know, we won, I think, 2 or 3 national championships when he was defensive coordinator. And he is just fantastic. I think he's the best coach in the country. I think they're a juggernaut. I think they're going to take this very seriously. I think the line's 15, and I would take Georgia minus 15 in that game.
Hey, Dave, let me jump in there. Actually, 4 of Nick Saban's 6 national championships at Alabama came with Kirby as the defensive coordinator. So from 2009, the first one, their third year there, 2009 to 2015, Kirby's last year, they won 4 titles. From 2016 to now, they've won only, and this is all relative, only 2. So that speaks to the value. I think it's not all about Kirby, but that speaks to some degree to the value of Kirby Smart.
And that little run from 9 to 15, you can say that was sort of a mini version of John Wooden's UCLA basketball teams. I mean, Alabama was the gold standard in those years. I mean, we were pretty much running unopposed, and because we had Nick Saban as our head coach, and we had Kirby Smart as our defensive coordinator.
Yeah, Kirby is just – someone told me when, you know – well, I can still remember, and this is not going to happen now, of course, but I can remember talking to Terry Saban back in 2012. If you guys remember, Robert will remember, and he might shed a tear, that Auburn interviewed Kirby Smart to replace Gene Chizik, and they had some disconnects on a few issues, and so that never happened. But Terry Saban she talked at that time. She told me that she thought that they would love to have seen Kirby replace Nick at Alabama. Yeah. And I don't know that they knew then that Nick was going to be there as long as he has been. But they were endorsing Kirby as the guy to follow Nick.
Yeah.
Well, I know that.
I forget when the Texas thing almost happened. Was that like 13 or 14?
That was the next year, 13. Yes.
Yeah. Well, that would have been great to have had him, succeed Nick. But he's where he's going to be for a long time, and people forget that. I mean, he's a young man. I mean, he's in his mid-40s, I think.
Yeah. Here's the question, Kevin, and I don't know if anybody knows who the Board of Trustee members were. The 2 guys that objected to Kirby coaching in the national championship game against Notre Dame, and that gave. But those 2 people need to be outed, and that gave Auburn Gus. Gus's first year was great, but he had some good years afterwards. But could have been better. I think when you get a great coach, you know it. You don't have to be told. You just you know it. Let's ask. Now I want to throw it back to you, Kevin. What's going on in college football around the country right now? Can you look ahead a year from now as a writer, someone who votes in the polls? You've got 4 teams right now, and there's fear that if Alabama beats Frank's LSU Tigers today, that Alabama keeps winning out, they still could be the 5th team looking on, the one looking on from the outside. They'll be, God only knows what will happen if that happens. Welcome to what happened to Auburn in 2004. But the other thing is, next year with 12 teams, everybody in the top 25 a year from now is going to be thinking they've got a legitimate chance. I think it's the best thing we could ever do for college football. One of the best.
Well, one thing it's going to do is it is going to shift the drama next year to teams that are, in the 12, 13, 14 range rather than teams in the 4, 5, 6 range, 7, 8, if you want right now. And think about this, guys. It is possible, and it's almost laughable to say this out loud, but if Alabama runs the table, They beat Georgia in Atlanta. Say they play a classic game. Say they play another overtime game.
Bias I have to deal with every week.
And so you're sitting there on Selection Sunday. Alabama's the SEC champion with 1 loss. Georgia is sitting there, 2-time defending champion with 1 close loss.
Right.
And neither of them makes the playoff.
Yeah.
All hell's going to break loose.
It could play out that way. And how would you – Alabama's big problem is Texas.
Yeah.
Alabama needs Texas not to be a 1-loss Big 12 champion.
Yeah.
That's the nightmare scenario this year. That both of them that Alabama beats them in the SEC championship and neither get in. Next year as a service academy guy. I mean, if Air Force is next year, if next year were this year, and Air Force wins out and wins the Mountain West and they're 12-0, in my opinion, I'm biased. I'm a service academy guy. They belong in the playoff, the 12-team playoff.
And that's going to be part of the fun of it, isn't it, Dave?
Yeah.
We'll see teams like that have an opportunity to play a playoff game, and even better, to have playoff games on campus. To have maybe Oklahoma going to Alabama in December, or Alabama going to Michigan in December, what have you, if they don't shut the Michigan program down by then. Or LSU having to play at Penn State or vice versa. I mean, that's the kind of first round games we're going to get in the playoff, and that's going to be so much fun.
It's going to create the survive and advance drama that exists with March Madness.
Yeah, and it's Sweet 16 of March Madness. That's what it is.
Yeah, it's as good as I'm so happy about this. I really am. I'm never going to be a fan of the NIL or the transfer portal, but I'm so happy about the 12-team playoff.
Yeah, I think another thing it does is it keeps fans interested longer in the season, because especially whenever it's just 2 teams, like LSU loses 2 games early, then their fans aren't as interested the rest of the season. 12, you could drop 3 games in the SEC and you win your last 5 or 6, you're probably in.
Yeah, I agree with that. And like Wilson, my son, said, this college football season, he said it 5 weeks ago. He said every weekend is like opening weekend of March Madness, because with the portal and NIL, I mean, honestly, it's got to be program sales at football games now have got to be the best they've ever been, because nobody knows who the hell's on their roster. I mean, right. I think.
Hey guys, I'm gonna run. My buddies in here glazing over. We got to get back to some LSU talking here. And listen, I'm coming up on the cut through of Birmingham to head to Tuscaloosa. I got to grab my duct tape, go over to SEC headquarters, tie up some of those, replay officials just in case they get a little twitchy today. So I'm going to run. Great seeing you guys as always. Look forward to a great game tonight. There's nothing better than LSU Alabama at night on CBS one last time, the last finale of their run of it. So we're looking forward to it. And tell all my buddies in Tuscaloosa, we're coming. And we ain't backing down.
Be careful.
Golden Rule Barbecue.
All right, take care, Frank.
Hey, I hope Frank notices, guys. And I didn't know this. It'd been a while since I'd been by the SEC office. I stopped by to see a friend there a few weeks ago. They already have the Oklahoma and Texas flags hanging in the lobby, beautiful, along with the other schools in the league. I don't know if anyone knows that or how people would react if they knew that, but I saw them with my own 2 eyes.
I've got that map that my friend Barnwood Brenda made me of the SEC that she carved out of Cyprus, and it's got Texas and Oklahoma already painted on there. And when I'm on my normal set back at the farm, you can see in the background, the biggest thing is that giant orange Texas. And again, welcome to the SEC Media Days. Texas welcomes the SEC in the bottom right-hand corner. But it's going to be a lot of fun, because they're going to make everybody want to beat them, and Oklahoma as well. Both of y'all, got to ask you this. Looking at the big picture right now, Ohio State, Penn State, Michigan, Iowa's at 6-2. I think they're on top of the West. I don't see them winning. I don't see them winning the Big Ten. But in my opinion, I think Ohio State is doing anything they can to get Jim Harbaugh to the NFL or away from them. Now, prior to the last 2 years, Michigan has beaten the hell out of Ohio State and won the Big Ten. They had lost 15 of the previous 16 games to Ohio State. Am I on to something? They're willing to do anything. One school could hate another school that much. Golly, I've seen it before in the Iron Bowl. But what happened was with both Auburn and Alabama, the policy of mutually assured destruction, like the old Cold War, has kind of stopped that. But Michigan and Ohio State, basically Ohio State tells the NCAA what to do. I'm just curious, just in a couple of minutes, because Brendan Martin, Buddy's son's going to join us in a minute. Do you think Harbaugh is in college football a year from now? Kevin first, and then Dave, and then we'll go to Brendan.
First of all, living the last, 3+ decades in the state of Alabama, I'm shocked to learn that one rival might turn in another rival in college football. I know. Gene Jelks and Eric Ramsey say hello. Yeah. We were doing that kind of stuff 30, 40 years ago here. Yeah. It's nice to see the Big Ten catching up when it comes to that kind of subterfuge. But look, I think Michigan, with all of the evidence that, again, this is public evidence. This isn't necessarily evidence that the NCAA will use. And the level of anger in the Big Ten, you combine that with the flip of Michigan. What were they, 2-4, I think, in the COVID season in 2020? And as you mentioned, Rob, Ohio State had dominated that series. And all of a sudden, Michigan is this monster. And they're this monster defensively. And they're shutting everybody down. And it's, it's like many people have said, it's like having the answers to the test, if indeed they're doing what they're accused of doing. And if they are guilty of doing what they're accused of doing, there need to be serious repercussions, because that kind of competitive advantage through means outside the rules has got to be dealt with. It's got to be dealt with severely.
Yes. Dave, real quick before we go to Larry Bud Melman in the bottom corner.
My dad was best friends with Bo Schembechler. They were like BFFs. And so by having the blessing of having a lot of time with Coach Schembechler, I got to, learn a lot of things. And, he talked about Anthony Carter. He talked about Dan Dierdorf. He did talk about Jim Harbaugh. His reverence of Jim stopped short of some of the other players that played at Michigan. And I never thought about that until just recently. And, Coach Schembechler would never have a discouraging word about any of his players, total loyalty to all of them. But I don't think that Coach Harbaugh was in the platinum class of, in terms of Coach Schembechler's reverence for his players. So for whatever that's worth.
Yeah, that's interesting. Brendan Martin, son of Buddy, down in Ocala, driving the old highway that the Gators take to Gainesville for this matchup, Florida and Arkansas today. I love it. This is like watching Leave It to Beaver, the old TV shows. Somebody driving along, but he's actually driving. You got the state trooper cam on the deck. Brendan, how are you?
Yeah,
Jerry Mathers as the Beaver.
Only for you, Rob. Only for you when I do this. Saturday is a busy day for me. I'm headed up to Gainesville for this matchup at noon, which I hate noon games. Nothing like having all blackout for a 12 o'clock game in Florida. I don't think, this was probably worst case scenario is what they hope for today. But let's do
Here
this.
we go.
And, there we go. But here's what it is. Florida versus Arkansas. It's going to be quite a matchup. I know you guys are talking about the cheat gate, Michigan gate, whatever, Harbaugh gate, whatever gate we're going to be talking about. We talked to Urban Meyer yesterday about this. He's on our Friday show, Best Fridays in Football, myself and Dad, and we talk to him about 30 minutes every Friday. And he alluded to, the whole thing, he had a baseball reference. He said, in baseball, if you played baseball, you grew up, watching signs and stealing signs. And that was gamesmanship is what he called it, in game. We talked about changing, your their signal, a little bit of your indicator signal, whatnot. But he also said that if it's to the level of what they're talking about now, that's cheating. And that's just what it is. And the NCAA needs to deal with that accordingly. But right now, we're uncovering a whole lot. And there'll be some sort of a paper trail of text messages and things, as they sort of get to the bottom of it. You said, speaking to the character of Harbaugh or speaking to the character of a coach or whatever, he says that's something he never tries to do because, whether it's 5 years ago and we're talking recruiting scandal, this or that. Now we're talking cheating scandal. Is what it is. But at the end of the day, cheating's cheating, and we'll certainly find out more as time goes on. As NCAA doesn't move too fast on these kind of things, so we'll probably find out in about 10 years. But nonetheless, it's an unfortunate thing for college football as a whole because I never like to see this kind of thing happen, especially to the kids up there.
Yeah, we had Bill Hancock, chairman of the College Football Playoff Committee, on the show Wednesday morning at 8:30 in the second segment, right after these rankings came out. And Doug Dean and Dudley Dawson from Hogville.net and I were talking with Mr. Bill Hancock. Doug asked him about the Michigan story, and he said, listen, we're not a regulatory, we're not a governance body. We simply rank the teams as we see them. And he said, that's what we're doing. He goes, whatever happens with Michigan, it's out of our control. But again, I like this. Kelly Leak, Sweet 16, Final Four is the most fun sporting event. How much more fun will the college football playoffs be? You talk about my friend Tim Horton out there at Air Force Academy coaching running backs. They're 8-0. If you don't think Hugh Freeze can recruit Auburn fans that are panicking and some of these dumbasses that are putting Fire Freeze now, you're living brain donors. He left Liberty in pretty good shape. They're 8-0 right now. He will get Auburn, in my opinion, going. But you look at James Madison University. You look at Air Force. You look at Liberty. When we have teams like that, what will their fan bases do? Look what happened in basketball. Kevin, shed some light on this. You're in the Basketball Writers Hall of Fame. You got inducted out in Houston, which is a damn badass honor. Brendan, he's the only sports writer, I believe, in Alabama history to get that honor. That's an incredible honor. But what about it? How big a deal will it be?
Well, I don't know if that says more about me or about the state of Alabama's.
It says about you
on football at the expense of basketball for a long, long time. But thank you for mentioning that, Rob. No, now, and this is interesting, guys, and Nick Saban has been talking about this for years, that when they went to the 14 playoff, that so much of the attention and focus and discussion in college football in the last month was going to be all about the playoff. You remember the Who's In promos that ESPN has done?
Yes.
And it was almost as if, the other 120-something FBS schools didn't matter anymore, didn't count on the national stage. And that's a terrible thing because, you know what? That Arkansas, for example, where Brendan's going today, that Florida-Arkansas game is very important for both teams. It's not, they're not in the playoff hunt. They're not going to Atlanta, but that's a huge game for both teams, both head coaches. And so that game matters. And those Florida fans, even though it's 11 o'clock Central Time, noon Eastern time, they'll show up and they'll be loud and they'll sing Tom Petty at the end of the third quarter and it'll be special. And, those things are still happening outside of the playoff chase. But at least going to 12 will involve more fan bases and more people getting excited about college football and staying excited about college football to the end. And outside of what's happening locally, if it's not in the playoff hunt. So that's a good thing for the interest in college football, that more teams will be more engaged, more fan bases more engaged nationally in November.
Think about November next year. Just to Kevin's point, think about November next year and all the, so many, there's 25 teams, 30 teams thinking about playoffs, and then college basketball season is kicking off. I think, this year in the SEC is going to be the best year ever for basketball in the SEC. And I can't wait to see Alabama's team. I can't wait to see Auburn's team. I love Bruce Pearl. And you got that starting in November with the playoffs for football. I mean, it's, man, fantastic.
Yeah. Brendan, looking at it, Dave stopped off in Gainesville, Wednesday night?
Wednesday night, yep.
Where'd y'all stay?
We stayed at the AC Hotel, the Marriott AC, right across the street from campus. From the 10th floor, the swimming pool area, you could have your glass of wine and see the swamp.
Brendan, can you go there during games and get liquored up there on the balcony? I mean, safely, of course, on the guarded rail, of course. But can you watch the games from your hotel room there?
No. I think it's a distant view, but I think you can see it because it's a big place, the swamp. But I think it might be a distant view. Listen, I wish that I had the ability to tailgate and do all that kind of stuff, but game day for me is work day. So running a website, YouTube channel, a bajillion other things, getting riders coordinated is enough for me to want to drink after. So I haven't done much of that. But I wanted to say about this matchup meaning something to, Arkansas, Florida, meaning something to, Joe Gator fan. It's sold out today. The swamp's sold out, been sold out. I know it's its first blackout game, and it's for, proceeds go for the troop, which is great. But I think if you're, the Florida's in a rebuilding year, a rebuilding couple of years. National perspective is, Billy on the hot seat and whatnot. But 2024 recruiting class is about as strong as you're going to get. In a long time since a la Urban Meyer days. Florida, predictions this year was that, hey, 5-6 wins is pretty good for this team, considering 30 plus guys hit the portal in the off seasons. Billy's completely revamped. They got to get bigger up front. They got to get better offensive linemen. The game of inches. Billy likes to run the football, but Graham Mertz has emerged as a really fantastic quarterback. And they got him. DJ Lagway is coming out of high school next year, and he's lighting it up. Probably, one of the best high school prospects since Tim Tebow around these parts. So, the future is bright. Billy's not going anywhere, but this kind of a game matters because then you've got, on the schedule, you still got an LSU, you still got to go to Missouri, you still got to bring Florida State at home, which is, obviously the rivalry. So these games are big, especially LSU and especially obviously FSU, because you got to win your rival games. And Billy got off the schneid this year by beating Tennessee, to get that out of the way. So, going 2-3 or whatever, having a successful, end of this year is really a win. And I think a lot of Florida fans see it that way, considering how Dan Mullen left. And the status of the team before Billy showed up. So these kind of games are important to teams like Florida and Arkansas, who's probably the best 2-6 team out there right now because they're super talented and they're not to be overlooked. I think it's a 50-50 split in Vegas. I haven't looked at the line this morning, but it's still exciting football, and everyone gets up for it, and it's what it's all about around here.
Well, let me throw this one at you, Kevin first, and then Dave after Kevin. Mississippi State and Kentucky play today. Honestly, I've got a new term I use, coaching malpractice. I'm not the only one for sure. But what happened to Will Rogers, and we talked about it on the show yesterday, nobody's talking about his injury, and that's a coach's son from Rankin, Mississippi. First 3 years you're in the air raid. I understand wanting to have your own mark and identity on the program.
Yeah.
Remember when Ray Perkins took down the tower at Alabama in '83 when he took over for Coach Bryant? Why would you do that? You've got the best restaurant in town. You serve ribs, and all of a sudden you start serving sushi. I mean, why do people do that? But Kevin, what do you think's going on? Zach Arnett's been there 3 years as DC. Now he's the head coach, but he brings in Adrian Barbeau or Kevin Barbeau, whatever his name is. That has not worked out well. And Mississippi State spends a lot of money like everybody else in the conference. They want to win.
Yeah, and to be fair, he walked into it's a very difficult situation, obviously, with Mike Leach passing away and having to take over your first head coaching job and follow an iconic figure like Leach. But when you've been doing a certain thing on offense, you've recruited to that, you've played to that, and to change that system that's a pretty drastic move by a young head coach trying to prove himself. And I understand that instinct, and certainly Ray Perkins embodied it, wanting to do your own thing, be your own man, do it your way, let people know this is not the old way, this is your way, you're the new sheriff in town. But sometimes you can go overboard in that regard, and certainly may look like Zach Arnett has done that. And I'll tell you what, Rob, when I was looking up the numbers before the Auburn-Mississippi State game of what Will Rogers did to the Auburn defense the last 2 years, the numbers he put up were almost Peyton Thorne's numbers for the entire season to that point. I mean, he lit Auburn up so badly, so Auburn was glad not to see him last week, obviously. So I don't know what's going to happen there, but I know there are some questions being asked long term. Is Zach Arnett the right guy there?
Yeah.
It's just my dad was fraternity brothers with Ray Perkins, and they loved each other. But my dad said that when Ray took down the tower, that was the stupidest thing. He was dead then, because I mean that was our cross. I mean that was our steeple there. And the same thing's happening at Mississippi State, I believe. You're not going to replicate the offense of before, but don't just completely re-engineer it. I think you lose the spirit and respect to your players when you do that, because Mike Leach, it worked. I mean, he brought that offense to Mississippi State and it was working, and why tear it down? I don't know. It makes no sense to me.
Oakley, you play NBA, you go through coaching changes and whatever like that. How long do you have to decide if you're buying in or not before, if you wait too late, it's too late?
I mean, I think if you're going to buy in the first few meetings or practices with the coach. And I think Zach Arnett may be the guy, but I mean, I think he's also in a very unfair situation. Like for what he wants to run, they're built for the air raid, and he doesn't want to run that.
Yeah.
So it's a bad situation for him. I think he wants to run the ball and play defense,
which is what you got to do in the SEC. Brendan.
Well, and I will say, look, Billy came in, and look, this is the game changer, and a lot of this is you've got things like the transfer portal, and like I said before, Billy came in. It's not like he's running the same offense when Mullen was here. Billy likes to run the football. He likes to, win. It beat you at the line of scrimmage, although he'd taken to the air a little bit more in the last couple of games. That's just out of necessity to try to win a football game. I think the difference is now is that you can go in as a head coach and you can, you can get 30 guys to hit the portal and go pick them back up and change that whole thing. But the thing that if you do that, if you buy into that, you'll get that kind of coach. You've got to have to settle in on a 3-4 year rebuilding process, that you're really going to have to go recruit guys. And, people have to understand those guys aren't going to come in and play the following year or the year after that. They got to learn that system. And then you've got to play in the SEC, while you're rebuilding. So you've got to take heat constantly, and with that comes coaching changes. I mean, we have 100+ assistant coaches at Florida, the most in all of college football. So there is it is a master's class in being a CEO for a big organization, as well as the PR and everything else, not to mention you have to deal with, all the tradition and the SEC tradition and what it means to play at the SEC. And you've got to sort of communicate that with fan base. And I think that's where Billy's probably gone wrong the most, is that he's really, made it, he's trying to make it a la Saban, which is, his background. We could have shut it down to the media. And then you do that in a place like, say, Florida, well, the media is going to come after you pretty hard. And that doesn't make your life that much easier. It is the fishbowl of fish bowls. But if you're going to rebuild the program, I think it's possible now, especially offensively, and bringing a whole new system in like the air raid or whatever it may be. But, you're going to have to really understand that it takes a couple of, 3 or 4 years to rebuild and be okay with 5, 6, 7 wins and go into the Weed Whacker Bowl or whatever it may be if you're lucky and call it good. Gentlemen, I got to drop off. I got to go get my credential and hit to the game. It was real nice. Thank you. It's an honor to be on with all your guests. I hope you all have a great game day Saturday, and we'll catch you on the flip side.
I'll holler at you later today. You and your dad have fun. Thank you. All right. Kevin, and this is the thing, and I agree, and Dave, this, and Oakley, Oakley's wanting to get into at Auburn broadcasting and journalism and all this. And Kevin, you look at your college experience. You moved down the start of your senior year of high school from Pottsville, Pennsylvania.
After I graduated.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then you go to Troy, and kind of what advice would you give Oakley? I mean, my son, looks at him like, another brother, and he's around him a lot. And but Wilson's in finance and investment banking stuff. I'm in this business, and I keep telling him, take every job you can get on the back wheel of the fastest riders, and show up early with a positive attitude and say, hey man, what can I do to help? And if you finish your task, go and say, what else can I do? Don't wait for someone to come to you, but give him some mentoring, and hell, he'd be a good intern if you need somebody to come down there, run around and work for you.
Well, what you just said, 2 words stood out, Rob, in what you just said. And Oakley, I hope you take this to heart. Show up. Show up. Show up around the athletic department. Show up in the sports information department. Get to know Kirk Sampson and the people that work there. Offer to freelance for, the OA News, local newspapers, cover high school games, what have you. Get out, meet coaches, meet players. The more relationships that you can develop, the better it will be for you. So they get to know you, and there's no better advice than that. Show up, meet people, offer to help, as Rob said, and go above and beyond. Don't ever, you can't, if you want to be in journalism, forget punching a time clock. There are no time clocks. The time clock is what it takes to get the job done. And that means working nights and weekends and holidays. And sometimes it takes you away from your friends and your family, but it's just, you have to have that level of dedication if you really want to make it in this business. And so that's the first thing, is show up, be around, and offer to help and do as much as you can.
Yeah.
My favorite thing when I worked at Churchill Downs was going to Bristol, Connecticut to go to ESPN's headquarters. And sure, it was nice to see Mike Tirico and Scott Van Pelt and, meet all the talent that we see on camera. But the coolest part was to watch the staff. I mean, the people you would never hear about, the people that probably made $35,000 a year working 10, 12, 14, 18 hours a day because they loved it. They loved sports media and how hard they worked and just their passion. I mean, that was just beautiful. And it's like, wow, like ESPN or not like ESPN, but they, it's the people in the cubicles that are that brand, in my opinion. And it was so beautiful to walk through the cubicles and see these people, and these are kids who are, 22, 24 years old. And, maybe they're only going to be there for 4 or 5 years, but this is what they loved it. I mean, this was their lifelong dream being realized. They get to write about sports, and it was so cool.
Yeah. And, Oakley, what I remember, you talk about Kevin, have to give up doing things with your friends. You're going to have to sacrifice. I remember being in college, Thanksgiving morning, having to leave Memphis before sunrise to get my ass down to Birmingham to work for CBS for the Auburn, Alabama game. And I got down there. We had Dr. George Plaskitas was one of our professors at Auburn. He was an All-American football player at Ole Miss in 76 and 77, defensive end. And we had some people in the class like my friend Jay Stern and Karen and people that got us these gigs with ESPN, Turner Broadcasting, CBS, or whatever. I get down to Birmingham to Legion Field. It's a cold, gray day, appropriately to be at the cold, old, gray lady on Graymont, next to the Tiger and Tide liquor store. But I get there early that morning, and it's Thanksgiving. My family's going to the club for Thanksgiving. Forget about that. I didn't get to go to Thanksgiving, and I get down there, and my job was to take this guy, James Browne, who's on TV now, and take him everywhere in the stadium. James and I sat in the end zone of Legion Field for about 3 hours, just talking about this rivalry. And he looked at me and he says, I don't notice you, really trash talking a lot about Alabama and all. I said, well, here's the deal. I've got so many friends on both sides. I said, I want to win that game so bad, but I also, they're my friends too. And so there's respect in that rivalry. And it was so much fun to get to be around there. And in the fourth quarter of that game, they would pay us like, $100 a day. I asked, can I go out on the field? And I got to go down on the sidelines in the last few minutes as Auburn celebrated winning the SEC championship. And you just asked, but, you also worked a 15 or 17-hour day. And about 11 o'clock that night, I kept the tradition going of having a piece of turkey at least on Thanksgiving Day, but it was all worth it, no matter, because of all I went through to get that experience. And I don't like talking about me, but y'all are both right. And Oakley, you got to be prepared, man. Show up. 95% of life is showing up with a positive attitude, isn't it, guys? I mean, Oakley, is that how you do it at practice every day?
Yes, sir. Yeah, it's all about your mentality.
Yeah. It's state of mind. I mean, I think
be the guy that other people like to see. We all know, and look, we all have our days where we're just not. We all have bad days where it's hard to keep a smile on your face. But Rob's a great example. I mean, I don't know that I've ever talked to Rob when he wasn't up and energetic and excited about what he was doing. And I still remember when you came up to me, Rob, at SEC Media Days some years ago and struck up a conversation. And again, you have to be willing to reach out to people and talk, open up to people, introduce yourself, get to know people, and that. But having enthusiasm that can take you a long way too. And it doesn't need to be artificial. It's got to be genuine because people can tell when you're putting on airs. But if you're genuinely excited about what you do, that's the kind of people you want to be around, right?
Yeah.
I mean, when Kevin, I'll give you credit. When I read you, I know you love what you're doing. It just comes out. And being an Alabama nut, I love that because I love Alabama, and so I'm so grateful that you do what you do. And I know that that sometimes you're right that you're not in a great mood or you're tired or whatever, but you do what you do, and it's such a benefit to our Alabama culture, and I'm so grateful. So you're a great role model for Oakley.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, and Kevin, I'm
how lucky we are though to do what we do and to have done it as long as we've done it. That's pretty special. And I try never to lose sight of that fact. Even on some of those down days when I'd rather be do it maybe just under the covers and not come out of bed or whatever it might be, but we're just lucky, and we never need to lose sight of that.
Yeah, I'm going to get Oakley in touch with you right after the show. He's going to subscribe to Scarbo Knows and the Birmingham Lead, so it'll be Oakley McFerrin coming to you. That's who that's going to be. But I'm going to tell you something. I've told him this, and this, Dave. You take what you did. 4 years at West Point, 5 years active duty, deployed in Kaiserslautern or Wiesbaden or whatever.
You got Kaiserslautern. You're right.
That's pressure. Hey, that's pressure. Cruise missiles. Hey, losing a football game, it's not fun, but pressure is I'm handling cruise missiles. So you took that, got your MBA at Stanford, and then parlayed that into working and building businesses, and we hear the term startup, tech startups. They don't all work. Most of them do. But I'm with y'all. I don't like being around negative people. People say negative, oh, they're just being realistic. Well, along the way to the top, people will line up on both sides of the street to tell you how you're going to fail and you can't. Got to learn to treat the word impossible as motivation. And that's the thing that sports writers like Kevin, and Buddy Martin and Brendan doing what he does. He's got 20 plus years experience with ESPN and CBS. He's got a lot of experience working in production. Holy cow. There we go. Everybody's back. No need to be concerned, but that experience that you get writing, you said, Kevin, for the paper, just let me write, and having a mentor, a boss that will say, I want you to go cover this game and write about it. I mean, you better show up early. There's no such thing as you will not, that's what they're writing about. You're writing about really about life. They just keep score and you wear uniforms, but that's the great thing about the great writers and all. But look, we got a few minutes left. Let's do this in the last few minutes. Give me, start with Kevin and then to you, Dave, your top 2 or 3 games of the day that you're going to be focused on and paying attention to. And then Kevin, let people know how they can follow you, keep up with all your great work.
Okay. Thanks, Rob. Yeah, I'll go in chronological order. Vanderbilt, Auburn, very important. I'm going to try to be flipping between that and Florida, Arkansas, both tipping off. I'm ready for basketball already. We start today.
So are we.
Both kicking off in a little more than an hour. So I'm interested in both of those games. And again, for Auburn, and I don't want to get ahead of myself, but I've seen this too many times to not realize that Auburn, I'm not predicting that Auburn's going to beat Alabama. Let's not get carried away here. But what they can build off what happened against Mississippi State. They found some rhythm at quarterback with that position. He gained some confidence. The receivers gain confidence. I think each week now they have an opportunity to, given the way the schedule falls, and it has lightened considerably, to get better and better. So just keep an eye on how Auburn progresses, but it's important they take that next step today. And then the 2:30 CBS, again, part of the last CBS doubleheader, I guess. Yeah. In the last year of the CBS, the SEC on CBS, Georgia, Missouri. Will Georgia be Georgia? And I think they will be. And then, of course, obviously topped by LSU at Alabama. This has been such an iconic series. We've seen 9-6 games. We've seen 46-41 games. This one's going to tilt, I think, more towards the 46-41 than the 9-6. Yeah. And it's going to be fun to see, though. So that's kind of my big 3 of the day. And it's great, though. I love when they're laid out like that, from a time perspective, so you can really watch every game and not have to flip back and forth. And to keep up with my stuff, best way to follow me on Twitter/X at Kevin Scarbinsky. You'll get links to my columns in the Lead. It's BirminghamLead.com. You can subscribe to that. It's a daily newspaper they throw in your inbox. Or my weekly newsletter comes out on Thursdays, which is about 4 or 5 columns all packed into one. You can find that at al.com/sports as well.
Well, thank you so much for taking time to join us, Kevin, as always. And Dave, give us a couple of top games you've got, and we'll let everybody get out of here.
All right, cool. I like the Ole Miss Texas A&M game. I think it's the referendum game. I think the loser of that game is in some hot water. I'm not going to care at all about the Army Air Force game, even though I love Army, to the moon and back. But they're playing so badly this year. So maybe if I don't care about them, they'll play well today. And then of course the tonight's game, LSU Alabama. I'm really pulling hard for Alabama to win and to get the SEC championship. I don't think they can run the table and get to the playoff, but never doubt Coach Saban.
No, I agree with that. Hey, man, most often we see the face of Christ and the least among us. We live in the greatest country in the history of the world. We got the greatest guests, viewers, listeners, and sponsors. Thanks, everybody, for sharing with us. Appreciate you guys carrying us through when we didn't know where we were out in cyberspace. But Hey, you
Savant
got 4
Saturday.
engines. Every pilot client that I have says, hey, you lose one, you got 3 others. You lose 2, you got 2 others. So that's the way you do it. But anyway, great show. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next week. Have a great weekend. We're out of here.